Hi guys, it's Gemma here from Fundamental Sports and Fitness, and today's topic for the Chit Chat Thursday was what are shin splints and how can you avoid them. So I know as runners, obstacle course racers, whether you're beginner or advanced, if you get shin splints, they can be really painful and can kind of hamper your training quite a lot. But we're going to look at sort of what are they and what are the terms used around them. What can cause them, and then what's going to be the best way to help with your recovery for them. So shin splints in general are kind of the overarching, very general term for any lower leg pain that you could be feeling, usually stemming from around your shin area, and hence the term. And it can sometimes be sort of that fullness within your shin and the muscle at the front, so that tibialis anterior, that causes the pain. And it could be from a form of sort of the muscle swelling within the fascia, and that's pushing onto the bone, or some other nerve impingements that might be happening. So you can see there's lots of general overarching terms within it. But what we're going to do, we're going to look at probably the more common version and cause of it. And you imagine sort of that your leg or the front of your leg being split into compartments. Okay, so you'd have your anterior compartment, which is what we've just said, that tibialis anterior, so that front. You'd have your posterior compartment as well, so looking at your calf muscles, so that gastrocnemius and your soleus, those two big muscles at the back of your leg. So if we're looking at sort of the front, that anterior compartment syndrome, it's where sort of that tibialis anterior, and so the muscle at the front of your shin is swelling, and that's making it hard or providing some resistance when you're trying to dorsiflex your foot, so pointing it when we're trying to raise it up, sorry. So it then becomes quite painful when you're trying to do this action with your foot and bring it towards you. The other causes you might have also find is if that pressure is then pushing onto the bone, worst case scenario, it could then limit into a stress fracture, or as I say, we've got that muscle inflammation. The usual causes from it are from that running on hard ground. So you've suddenly started doing a load of high impact work. You've increased the weights that you're using in the gym. So there's usually a cause that you'd be able to point it back to. Now, the pain may initially be very acute, so you know you've done something. So it could be that if you're playing football, you've taken a knock from a tackle, or you've gone and hit your shin on a wall if you were in an obstacle, or it's that chronic pain which is built up over time. So that would be if it was more from that running injury and you've just suddenly been pounding the pavements really hard, and that has again just built it up and created the swelling. There's something else you could also look at, and that's when your gait when you're running. So and linking that into the biomechanics of your running style. So are you overstriding when you're running and you're putting more pressure on your shins, or is your hip dropping, so your pelvis, so there's that instability as your leg is coming off the floor. So again, when we've looked before at why we strengthen all the muscles within our hips, our glutes, particularly our quads, those are all going to impact why you may be feeling shin splints from that overstriding or from that hip dropping. So if it's your hip dropping, it's your adductors and your glutes that you're looking to strengthen. If it's your overstriding, that's where we'd then look back at your gait cycle and try and take shorter strides and increase your cadence slightly. So the best things that you can do from sort of a recovery point, you know that if it's going to be chronic, so it's long term, the best thing to be doing is rest it. And if it's from sort of an inflammation point, so it's that muscle rubbing onto the bone and causing that friction, then it's using the ice principle. Okay, a gentle massage will also help reduce any pressure that might be happening within there, and again making sure that you're stretching before and after your runs. Now, good stretch to be thinking about doing, because it is quite tricky. You're wanting to be thinking about pointing your foot down. Okay, so we're plantar flexing our foot now, so we're planting it down on the floor. But a good way to do that is if you were to kneel down and have your feet relaxed behind you, you could then sit down onto your heels and push down through your foot, and that would then create a lovely stretch down the front of your shins. Okay, and that would stretch your tibialis anterior. You could also look from a massage point of view and going into sort of those trigger points. You can foam roll down the front. Okay, again, it's not the most pleasant experience, but it can help. Or you could use one of the trigger point balls and take it sort of a third of the way down from your knee onto the muscle area, so back onto that tibialis anterior. And again, you'll find sort of the pressure point there. If you can hold it on for sort of that 10 to 20 seconds until you can feel the muscle release, and then apply a little bit more pressure on, that again will help from the trigger point of view when you're trying to release the muscle a little bit. So what else could you do to help avoid them? So I'd always advise sort of mix the surfaces that you're running on. So if you run on roads a lot, try introducing some trails or some grass, some field work. That's just going to make things a little bit easier, take the pressure off that impact. You could also check your shoes. Okay, so I think if they're slightly older pair, the cushioning might have gone slightly within them. As I said before, if you're overstriding or your hips dropping, getting a good gait analysis done. It doesn't need to be done by a professional. You could always get one of your friends to video you, and you'd be able to have a look then as you were running, if you can see any noticeable differences. And we've just given you the points there of what you could work on. Again, that glute strengthening, your adductor strengthening work to get the outsides of your legs working a little bit from that hip drop perspective. And as you said, if you can see that you're overstriding and you're trying to reach forward too much, that would be the point where you'd be wanting to take those shorter steps, so increasing your cadence. And again, a good way of doing that would be using one of the metronomes. So you're just making sure that you're planting your foot down on each of the ticks over as it goes, so you can really look to that. Think about your posture as you're running. I know I've mentioned it before in some of our chats, but it's just making sure that as you're running, everything is pointing forwards. Okay, have your posture nice and relaxed, so we're not hunched over. So again, that's going to be changing your position. So shoulders back, arms swinging nice and freely by your side, and making sure your head is looking forwards into the distance as you're running. Again, I always harp on about making sure that you've warmed up, you've cooled down, so a good stretching routine before and after you've run, and make sure you've got some cross-training happening in your sessions as well. So you're not just all about running, and it's not all just about the gym work. We're getting that nice balance within your training. So yeah, those are the few things to think about, which will always help you. If you've got any questions or you think you might have shin splints or an injury cropping up, just drop me a message. I'm still doing online consultations from a massage point of view, but also got might have some good training tips and ideas for you as well. So hope you're all doing well, and let me know if you've got any questions.